former chaplain in the United States Army, I believe. If you would lead us in prayer.
Thank you. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that we have to come together without fear of harassment. We love this country, Father. We pray for those that protect this country in battle zones around this planet. We ask that your sustaining grace be with those men and women in uniform. And Father, I pray that everything we do in this meeting will honor you. And I just pray, Heavenly Father, that we will learn from one another and fellowship. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a couple of things here, announcement-wise, and then we'll get right into our speakers. I've had quite a few of you come up to me today and say, Charlie, we need to hear some words of encouragement. And I can tell you that we have two really important guests here, and there's not a lot of time for that. But I'm going to take just 30 seconds to give you some words of encouragement. Last night, OCPAC had 12 candidates on the ballot for the state legislature that we had supported and endorsed, and 9 of those were victorious. So Bob Donahue, real quickly here, you have an announcement.
Just to follow up from last week's announcement, a week from tomorrow, the Oklahoma chapters of the John Birch Society are having a banquet celebration, and we're going to stress what we're doing in the future, what we're going to do, success through education. Today, it's $20 for the banquet, per person. Please see me with that, or you can make a table to that flyer and hand it out.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Let's recognize our dignitaries. We're going to start with the really important ones here. We have my personal county commissioner, Mike Pearson, here. What was your margin of victory? 67%?
66%.
66%. Congratulations. Sitting at a distant table from Mike somewhere is Mark Sharpton. Mark Sharpton is District 1 County Commissioner of Logan County. And congratulations on your meeting here. You weren't on the ballot last night, but you will be in 2 years, and you usually knock them out about like that also. Let's welcome our lawmakers that are here. I notice that we have Paul Wesselhoff. Please welcome Paul. State Representative Jason Murphy. Welcome him, please. Where you are, Mike? Okay. State Representative Mike Turner. Mike, where are you? Okay, well, he was here, so go ahead and give him a Okay. I also said that anyone that's a leader of an organization in Oklahoma, if you please stand at this time, I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Don't want speeches, just introduce yourself and tell what organization that you represent. So if we could all stand, please, leaders of organizations. Okay. Right.
My name is Robert Montgomery, and I conduct the Americanist Education and Action Study Group, 3rd Saturday and 4th Saturday of each and every month.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Back here.
Robert Siemens,
Yeah.
JVS, and also co-founder of Pro-Tem and Local.
Okay.
Martin Breed, JVS.
Okay.
Alan Connor, JVS, and OCPAC.
Okay.
Jason Murray, pastor, Draper Park Christian Church.
All right. Good.
Mike Sawyer, Oklahoma State Coordinator for the John Birch Society.
Okay. A lot of Birchers here today. That's not unusual. Probably 30% maybe most of the time. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well, let's get on to you gentlemen. Have a preference whichever of you speak first today. Okay. All right. He's going to prefer you, Senator. This is the 4th general election in a row that we have had the top representative of the Republican Party and from both the House and the Senate come to our meeting the day after the general election. And when I say the top representatives, there was a time it was Glenn Coffey that was the minority leader. Didn't have a majority yet. And we've had either the speaker or the speaker designee each time. Our first speaker today will be Senator Brian Bingman. He is a Republican from Sapulpa. And 2 years ago, he was elected as a Senate President Pro-Tem. I've asked these gentlemen to come and give us their thoughts on the elections last night, primarily focused toward the state. If they want to drift off into the federal government and bring a lot of doom and gloom on the people, that's when it's up to them. But, and then also relate to us, to whatever level they want to reveal the agenda for the upcoming legislative session, and especially the agenda, at least, that they are hoping to see come about. So please welcome Senate President Pro-Tem Brian Bingman.
Thank you very much, Charlie, and it is an honor to be here today. We did this 2 years ago, and I appreciate the opportunity to come back down here and visit with you all today. I think we're all very excited in Oklahoma. You told me to refrain about talking about the federal government, but all I can say is stalemate. I don't think we're any different off than where we were 2 years ago, whenever this election process started. And so there's a lot of challenges out there on the federal level. I think we had all hoped that things would have been different at the top. But one good thing about this country, when the elections are over, you shake hands and then you try to make the best of it. And certainly that's what our challenges are on the federal level. I'm happy to say that we're going to have a total red on our congressman, our whole U.S. delegation, and we welcome them and ask them to attack the challenges that are ahead of them. I'm very concerned on the state level. I think when we talk about our state budget issues on the state level, I think we're very healthy. We've got $577 million in a rainy day fund. We've just come off a recession that people around the country raising taxes. I think California yesterday even passed another tax increase to help balance their budget. We haven't done that in Oklahoma. We've met those challenges. We've reduced the size, the appropriations amount, and at the same time we cut our income tax. And I think you all saw just 2 days ago with the report on our revenue numbers. We're up 9% compared to last year. Your income tax rate has gone down to 5.25%, yet the income tax rates, our revenues are up. So I think that's a very good sign that people who want to work in Oklahoma, there are opportunities out there. We have a very healthy oil and gas sector, and we're very, very blessed in this state to have the natural resources that we've got. And so I like to see companies that are located here in Oklahoma, they want to stay here, and there's a reason for that. And I think a lot of that has to do with the policies that the legislature has done over the last couple of years. And we're all about pro-growth, pro-business, trying to make sure this environment in Oklahoma is attractive. And I'm excited. I think we've made some great progress, and it's a place that I want to stay. I want to make sure that we're doing the things that my family, my kids, I actually have grandkids now, and want to make sure that they're not saddled with the debt that's on their backs right now that's not being caused in Oklahoma. And as we move forward over the next 4 years, there's going to be a lot of more mandates coming down from the federal government that we're going to have to meet those challenges. So I think it's important at the state level that and I want to give credit to the Speaker-elect that, I look forward to the opportunity to work with him, that he's already brought up, talking about let's, examine and look at ways that we can prepare for what's going to come down on the federal level. We know it's coming. We can't just keep on, spending money that's not there. So let's be ready in Oklahoma that we can handle when federal funds that we pay in our taxes that go to Washington, D.C., when a lot of that's not going to come back. Let's be prepared to be able to handle those problems ourselves. And I think we've shown that we can do that over the last couple of years. We've tightened our belt. And again, we've got a balanced budget. We've got $577 million in our rainy day fund. So I think that speaks huge volumes about being prudent with our state dollars in Oklahoma. A little bit about last night. We're very excited in the state Senate. We've picked up, 4 seats, 2 in the primary and 2 last night. We picked up an open seat in northeastern Oklahoma, which is part of Adair and Mays County and Wayne Shaw. Looking forward to adding him to our caucus. And down in the seat that we did, kind of puts the dagger into the Democratic Party. The heart of the Democratic Party is when you can pick up McAllister. We picked up District 7. That's Gene Stipe's old seat. You think of all the Democratic leaders that came out of that area, Carl Albert, Speaker of the House, U.S. House, and Governor Nye. Just a lot of the politicians over the years have come from southeastern Oklahoma and concentrated out of the McAllister area. And for a Republican to win that seat, just huge volumes of, what great things that we've done. And one of the main things is we've gone out and recruited good candidates. And Larry Boggs will be an outstanding senator. He worked very hard and had good resources behind him, and we're very excited to have him come into our caucus. Our numbers this next year will have 36 senators, Republican senators, 12 Democrats. When I came into the Senate in 2006, we were tied 24-24, so we've made huge gains, and here we are at 36, got to have a super majority, so outstanding. If you go back to the 1930s, at one time there was a time in Oklahoma when there was not a Republican senator here in Oklahoma. So we made, over the last 20 years, we've actually flipped. I think 20 years ago there were 11 Republicans, and now 20 years later you've got 12 Democrats. So what a turnaround in Oklahoma. But with that comes a lot of responsibility, and I think over the last couple of cycles, I think the people that go out to the polls and vote are saying the Republicans are doing a good job, and they're happy with the way that we're governing, and so they're adding to the numbers, and we will continue to look for good candidates. We had a couple new additions that from the primaries. We had Nathan Dahm out of District 33. Nathan, I'm really excited about him. He's young. He's like 28 years old. He is in a new district that was actually moved. Tom Allison turned out, elected not to run again. So that seat was kind of moved to the southeastern part of Tulsa County. And Nathan won that in the primary. And he's eager to get to work. And I've met with him a couple times, and I think he'll be an outstanding addition to our caucus. Southern part of the state, Corey Brooks, who won last night. That's kind of a new district, covers part of Duncan and South Oklahoma City. And Corey, his experience comes from the military, and again, we're excited about having him. Jonathan Nichols, who turned out in Norman, is being replaced by Rob Standridge. Rob has been a pharmacist, has his own business, and again, he was wanting to put that off to the side and offer back to serving and in the state legislature. So I think we've added some outstanding new members, and they'll come in next week and come in for the swearing in, and then we'll have our little caucus retreat, at which time we'll sit down and talk about issues and start formulating our agenda as we move forward. I can't really predict, what our actual agenda is going to be, but some of the things that we've worked on over the last couple of years that we will want to continue to be an emphasis in the Senate. The governor, her own survey that she did last year, asking businesses in Oklahoma, what is what things can we do on the state level to improve the environment in Oklahoma? And certainly the number one issue is workers' comp reform in Oklahoma. And that's something that's be a priority for us in the Senate. Oklahoma, we love being number one in football, but I think we're not number one, but we're in the top 5 in the amount that a business has to pay for workers' comp rates in Oklahoma, and there's no excuse for that. You look at Arkansas, Texas, their rates are half of what we pay in Oklahoma. So that's a big, big detriment to any new business. We're out recruiting, trying to get businesses to come to Oklahoma, and they're very shy about, say, hey, what are you going to do about those worker comp rates? We've addressed the tort reform, lawsuit reform in Oklahoma, and number one on the list today is workers' comp. So that's something that we'll look at and try to do something that I think in the past when we tried to make meaningful reforms in the workers' comp, we have trouble of whatever we pass in the legislature is overturned in the court system. So. That's another challenge that we have. If we have to go to a vote of the people to change how we work comp in Oklahoma, then that'll be something that we will address. Another emphasis that we'll have is certainly on tax reform. We've all been committed to making sure that we're competitive with other states and the overall taxes that people pay in Oklahoma. Last year, we were looking at all the tax credits that are on the books, and there's a strong lobby for, and a lot of these tax credits. So a lot of them are difficult to understand, to be honest about it. And so I think last year we are still pursuing making sure that legislators are educated on the tax credits that are on the books. Our hope is that as we can look to eliminate some that are not doing what the purpose of them were set out, that any savings that we have, use that to help decrease, to go ahead and cut the income tax rate in Oklahoma. The plan that we had last year is going to kind of be a starting point for this year, and we'll go from there and see where it goes. But we're always looking at ways that we can do, looking to reduce the amount of taxes that are paid in Oklahoma. And again, we're looking for any ways we can be more efficient with the way we run government. And I know Jason Murphy, Representative Murphy's here, and he's always kind of championing that. So certainly appreciate all the efforts that he puts into that. And but again, we're always trying to do more with less, just like you all do at home with your family budget, your business. On the state level, we are reducing the size of state government, and but we can always do better. And we always, that's one good thing about term limits when you get new members, that they've got new ideas, fresh ideas, so you want to bring them into the caucus. And always, there's always another way to skin that cat, so to speak. So those are kind of some of the highlights that when it comes to our agenda for next year that we'll have at the top of our list, and a lot more challenges out there. And I think at this time, we can take questions later, but you probably want to let it speak. Let you introduce him. All right.
Here is T.W. Shannon, Representative T.W. Shannon from Lawton, Oklahoma. And he is destined, I think probably for sure, as of tomorrow maybe, to be the next Speaker of the House. The official election doesn't come until session starts, I don't believe. But anyway, please welcome T.W. Shannon. I've known him ever since he got into the legislature and found him to be a really delightful person and appreciate it very much. T.W.
Pro-Tem, appreciate that update, and appreciate you too, Charlie, and honored to speak before OCPAC. And Charlie, it's been interesting. Before I got elected, I always read Charlie's emails, particularly Charlie's picks, and it's been interesting. We started getting other emails from other groups too, and it's been interesting to watch Charlie move, be positioned as the squishy middle of the Republican Party. He's the crazy, the liberal of the reasonable one. Yeah, that's right. The liberal of the Republican Party. It's just been an interesting dynamic to watch. First, thank you for the honor to be here. As was mentioned, we are looking at the largest Republican majority in the history of the House of Representatives, which I think is something we can be very, very proud of as Oklahomans. And I will tell you, it is going to be a very diverse caucus. I've spent, I bought a vehicle in April, and I've had about 15,000 miles on it. I just hit 61,000 on my way up here since April, and that's because we've been crisscrossing the state, helping elect good conservative Republicans to the House of Representatives, and I think that is going to be a testament to the legislation and to the policies that we see promoted. But obviously, we stand on the shoulders of those that have gone before us, and there have been those that have been towing that line long before I got there, like Representative Reynolds and Representative Wetzelhoff, and I see Representative Murphy. And Representative Murphy, quick story on him, and then we'll kind of talk about what we came to talk about. Jason Murphy was one of the guys who came to me early on and said, "Hey, you need to think about running for Speaker of the House." And I said, "You're crazy." I said, "That's the worst job in state government. Are you kidding me?" I said, "A good speaker is kind of like having a boat or having a swimming pool. Every now and then you might think you want one, but it's probably better just to have a good friend or neighbor with you." But I told him that we would certainly pray about it and give it some consideration, and I felt led to do it, and I threw my name in the hat, and we were successful because of a lot of the people in this room. I'm looking forward to the leadership from Representative Turner, who, by the way, being a very popular incumbent, and he did it through hard work and determination, and we've become good friends, and looking forward to his leadership. I've often said if God were to give me but 4 months to live, I'd want to spend them in the House of Representatives during session, because they're usually the longest 4 months of my life. And I have no doubt that's going to be any different this next session. But after last night's election, one thing has become very apparent to me that I knew before, but it was just consummated last night, and that's we cannot afford to wait for the federal government to lead anymore. Washington, D.C. has proven that it is either incapable, unwilling, or just downright reluctant to make the necessary changes to deal with the problems that we face as a nation. And so if there's going to be reform in this country, and I believe there is, it's going to happen at the state level. It has to, in the laboratories of democracy, like it was designed to do anyway. So I think that's the good news, that it's going to happen. And I will tell you, it's going to be made with decisions are going to be made with, I think, a really great caliber of men and women. We have probably not only the largest caucus in the history of the state of Oklahoma, Republican caucus, I will tell you, it's the most diverse. We probably have everything from possibly libertarians, maybe even some socialists within our own caucus, maybe. But the good news with that is, what we know, if there is a gift that America, and we've given many gifts to the world, one of them is the value of diversity. And this idea that when you get many diverse opinions in the room, when you get different thoughts and opinions, you usually get a better product. It's more cumbersome, sometimes it's more painful, it certainly can be awkward at times, but at the end of the day, what we know is you get a better end product. And that's what I'm excited about looking forward as we look at the challenges that face us. And I'm pretty confident that, we're Oklahoma, when you look at where we're positioned right now, one of the lowest, unemployment rates. We've got, we've got certainly one of the most robust economies right now. And we've done it, as the Senator mentioned, without raising taxes. But one of the big challenges that I see that we face is we have a dependence upon federal dollars right now. Many of them are investments that the federal government should be making. I think things like infrastructure are important. Certainly, if they're going to mandate that we provide for the least among us, then certainly they should pay for it. But what we know is this: they can't continue to pay what they've been paying. They've been paying it. When you're spending $1 out of every $3 that you take in is a borrowed dollar. We know that they can't sustain that momentum. And so that means that the states are going to have to be better positioned to provide core government services to the people that we represent. And so we had better be thinking about that. That's why I introduced the interim study that I did, so that we could at least find out, we need a contingency plan. Every state agency in Oklahoma should have a contingency plan to deal with the cuts that are coming from the federal government. How can you, ODOT, how can you, Department of Education, how do you plan to provide the services that you're entrusted to provide without federal funding or with reduced federal funding? The other, and I know that this is the part that gets my friend Jason Murphy, Mr. Efficiency, this is what gets his blood boiling, is that, even within that, even if we don't have to use that contingency plan, I think we will flush out many inefficiencies and opportunities to make government even more efficient. So I'm really excited about that. One of the other challenges that I think we'll be facing next year, that we need to be focused on rather, is really a focus on infrastructure. I mean, I think that is certainly an appropriate role for government to be focused on, and we certainly in Oklahoma, I think, have been negligent in certainly the first 100 years at maintaining the state's infrastructure, and I think we need to continue that momentum. We've done a lot of that in the State House of Representatives, to be frank with you. It started there, and I think we should continue to do that, because I think the people expect it. The infrastructure, roads and bridges in particular, it's the one area of state government where public safety and economic development intersect. And so I think we need to have a real laser focus on that area. The other is frankly having a real, we don't need more taxes in Oklahoma, we need more taxpayers. And what I hear when I travel the state, we don't have an unemployment problem in Oklahoma, we have an employment problem. We have trouble, most employers I talk to say, we can't find the qualified, workforce, the educated workforce to fill the jobs that we have. And so I think we need to start asking some tough questions from our education community about the product that they're producing. What's the return on investment that we're making? And how do we make that alignment? How do we align that spending with the needs of the private industry? How do we make sure that we're producing not just any college graduate, not just any degree, but things that will put people to work, that will certainly give them an educational opportunity that they deserve and that they paid for. So I think that's really two good areas that we've got to be laser focused on in the House of Representatives. As mentioned, we'll have our own Republican House caucus. December 2nd, we'll come together and formulate, hopefully, a strategic plan of how we begin to make and formulate the agenda that will drive the discussion for next year. I'm certainly excited about the opportunity to do it. And at the end of the day, we've been entrusted with the trust of the Oklahomans, and we've got to make sure that we're being good stewards of that trust that we've been entrusted with. And so I'm confident we will do that and begin to really make a difference. And we've certainly got a track record of doing that I'm proud of. And I look forward to the opportunity of working with Senator Bingman and also with the governor's office to make sure that we're doing what we've been charged to do. So thank you. I'll cut it off there to make sure we have time for questions.
One of the things that we wanted to do differently this year than what we've done in the past is we actually wanted to hand each of you an agenda from the grassroots, or at least from OCPAC. So for at least 2 Wednesdays, we worked on this, and actually we've tried to keep it pretty short, just 2 pages here. So the first one is just 13 items, and there's a little bit of an introductory here. And by the way, public copies are on the table here. First one goes to you, Representative Shannon, and then Senator Bingman to you here. And on the back page is a little humor. Some of us went down last week and made a picture, took a picture in front of the Indian Heritage Cultural Center and expressed our thoughts on that just a little bit. I will say that there are 2 things that we did not put on here, and it's really an oversight on my part to submit these items to our members. One is the Indian Heritage Cultural Center. We know it's a real problem here. The state of Oklahoma has borrowed millions, tens of millions of dollars to get it to where it is now, and it's only about halfway there. And we just urge you guys to really work hard to find a way to get that issue solved without more tax dollars going into that. I can tell you, I just returned from South Dakota to see the Crazy Horse Monument, and when the sculptor decided to make that at the request of the Lakota elders, he said this is going to be a monument to all Indians in North America. And it's a monument to represent them, and as such, they shouldn't have to pay for it, and they shouldn't have to work on it. And I want to assure you right now that the visitor center they have there right now is more impressive than this. Not even counting the mountain. And if you've ever seen a picture, the hair coming off a Crazy Horse alone, the hair is not finished, but that is larger than Mount Rushmore itself. It is going to be the most massive, I mean, there's nothing in the world that's going to come close to it. And it will take probably another 100 years to complete that monument. But they have never taken one penny in state or federal government. In fact, twice the federal government's tried to buy the project from the family. And they said, no, we're going to do this. The people of America will support it. So we just urge you to find ways to do that. And then secondly, on tax cuts. And I am of the opinion, and this is just my opinion here, you don't have to respond to it if you don't want, but I think that the idea of tax cuts last year was fairly flawed in this one sense. We were wanting to reduce personal income tax, and part of the payment of those personal income taxes was going to come from reducing some of the benefits that businesses receive in Oklahoma, such as kickbacks, tax credits, and things like that. The problem is corporations in Oklahoma, the corporation itself does not pay 1 penny in personal income tax of their employees. That's all deducted from their salaries. There is a little overhead involved in that, but they don't pay a penny of it. So we were asking corporations to give up some of their benefits so that there could be personal income tax that doesn't benefit a corporation at all. And I'm of the opinion where Mary Fallon or Governor Fallon was trying to promote an $800 million tax cut, we would be better off, that being about half of the revenue coming from income taxes, we'd be better off totally eliminating corporate income tax, which is about $400 million coming into the state government. We'd be better off eliminating that totally and maybe $400 million in personal income tax. That would send a stronger message to the nation that Oklahoma is really open for business. We've eliminated our corporate income tax. We've reduced personal income tax to some degree. And your corporations could then give up those tax credits because they got a benefit from the reduction of the corporate income tax. That's just my thought. I will write that out more significantly and share that with you and some of the other lawmakers. I'm done. Any questions here? Yes.
Gentlemen, first of all, thank you so much for coming. Senator, I'd like to ask you, about 75% of Oklahomans voted for the American law for American courts. And yet when they came before the Senate, my own senator in Edmond told me he was too busy working on a tax bill to even bother to vote on that issue. Is there a chance of coming up with this to deal with the anti-Sharia situation and the Oklahoma laws for Oklahoma courts issue this session?
Thank you for the question. I believe at the end of session there was a bill that went through the Senate on the Sharia law addressing that issue. Senator Newberry, I think, went ahead and we ran that bill. I'm not sure what, obviously it didn't get signed by the governor, but I know there was a bill early in session that you may be referring to, but I think there was another bill late in session dealing with that. And
I did not hear that. I apologize.
It was not compatible. It was not compatible with the House bill that was out there. It was a new piece of legislation, so it was never considered on the House side.
I will say that I've got with me today, I've got Trey Thompson, who is our part of the leadership staff, and he handles all our policy issues, and also have Nathan Atkins with me, who's my leadership assistant and communications director. So they certainly will be available if y'all ever have any questions. And when I can't answer questions, I have to lean on them too. But I think Trey might have had some information on that.
The issue is also being litigated by the Attorney General. It's still in the court system as well.
Right.
What's on, Representative?
Thank you, Charlie. I have a question for my good friend, Senator Bingman. Sir, other than the possibility of the ME's office, do you see any justification at all for tapping the rainy day fund?
At this time, I'd say no. I don't think, until the rainy day fund is full, I think we still have I don't know what that exact number is, but the rainy day fund of $577 million is not complete. So I think, first of all, we need to make sure that the rainy day fund is full. And I can't say that I would never, say tap the rainy day fund, but today I don't think there are any issues important enough that we should be tapping the rainy day fund. I think we need to take our dollars and save our money and fill it up. Good.
We've suggested some other options. In ours, we've suggested some other options to pay for that, as well as repairing the Capitol, even though that's one of them there in our issues here. Someone else? Representing Reynolds.
Thank you. Senator Bingman, a few years ago, we passed a bill to ban embryonic stem cell research. I don't think there's any more important issue in Oklahoma than saving the lives of unborn children. If I were to reintroduce that bill, could I count on you to be my Senate co-author to ensure that it wouldn't die in the Senate?
No, I would certainly like to read the legislation and have the opportunity to, review all of that.
Follow up? That legislation was already passed.
I don't think this is the appropriate venue to talk about specific pieces of legislation. We're happy for you to come by and talk about it.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Someone else? Back in the back.
The answer is no, that's right.
There have been several things mentioned to try to deal with Obamacare and try to oppose it. Lawsuits, setting up insurance. One meaningful piece of legislation, you said this wasn't a place for specific legislation, I disagree strongly. There was an altercation legislation brought forth by Dr. Mike Ritz, Ropero, that would make it a crime to try to enforce any part of Obamacare. That actually got somewhere in the House, but it got stalled in the Senate, and I think there was not this leadership to the law. Would you care to address that, sir, Mr. Bingman?
I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but
Did it come over to the Senate?
It did come over to the Senate. Yes, it did.
Okay.
Article 1, Section 1, I think of our state constitution says that we must abide by the federal law. The federal law is the law of the land. And
Not that constitutional law, sir. No, sir.
And as much as, when you want to talk about the Affordable Care Act, certainly with the president being reelected, the chances of us being able to overturn that is going to be a much greater challenge. I don't think anyone in this room would be an advocate for the Affordable Care Act. And if we do nothing in Oklahoma, whether we like it or not, the federal government's going to come in and implement the Affordable Care Act. And we will do that.
No, you can stop them, sir.
Wait just a second.
And all I can say is,
wait just a second. We're not going to have this. We're one at a time.
We are.
We can ask questions, but we're not going to have a bunch of people shouting today. Okay? Go ahead, sir.
thank you. We have a federal delegation, and they're going to do all they can to protect Oklahoma. On the state level, we're going to do everything that we can that's legally within our bounds to make sure we make the right decisions, and that Oklahoma, want to make sure that Oklahoma can control their future. And certainly we don't want to have the federal government coming in and telling us how to, how healthcare is going to be in Oklahoma. So we have some challenges with healthcare, and I look forward to the opportunity to working with the governor and with the House and coming up with what we think is the best plan for Oklahoma.
Let me just say, we did address this in our issues here, and we urge an understanding here that the supremacy clause applies to the 17 enumerated powers of the U.S. Constitution.
That's right.
And when the federal government gets outside of those powers with mandates, we believe that the state has not only the opportunity, but an obligation to push back against the federal government to help keep it, to help put the federal government back into its proper cage of function And it's not just a privilege, it is an obligation to do that, to protect American federalism, and to keep this runaway tyranny of the federal government from expanding. I would ask both of you to consider this one thing. And this is really an important issue. You're going to have to ask yourself, I don't know whether the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, is the place to draw the line in the sand or not. But I want each of you to ask yourself this question. Is there no place that we are willing to stand up as a state and draw a line in the sand and say to the federal government, no more. You are not going to force us any longer into I don't know if this is the place to do that or not, but if there is no place we're willing to draw the line in the sand, I would urge you to get your knee pads out and get down on the floor and extend your little neck so that the thug boot of the federal government can step on you and start walking all over you, because that's the direction we've been going for a long time. That's the continued direction we're going to go. And we urge you to look for ways. That's one of the great things about our Attorney General. He has a department within his agencies, hired a top constitutional expert to examine every federal mandate that comes down to see if he can fight those. And we appreciate what the Attorney General is doing. But the state legislature, you are the leadership. You are what we need. If we're going to stand up, we can't stand up to the federal government out of here as individuals. That wouldn't be blessed of God. It wouldn't be proper. But you guys, as the leadership of the state of Oklahoma, we look to you and we hope that there's somewhere you're willing to draw the line.
I don't pretend to know the idea of the nullification. I don't think that went through, made it through the entire House. It may have come to a committee that I'm not on. But certainly I think all options need to be on the table for sure, because I think Charlie brings up a good point. The states have an obligation to push back against the federal government when they've gotten outside their constitutional boundaries. Now, I will add also that it's not for me to decide what law is constitutional. The Constitution has said that the Supreme Court will make that decision about what's constitutional and what's not. Now, I took an oath of office, but the Supreme Court, the third branch of government, it is their obligation to decide what's constitutional. Now, we as a state, we certainly have the obligation to stand up and push back.
Like Red Scott?
I beg your pardon?
Like Red Scott? They said
Again, sir, we're not going to have these outbursts here. You raise your hand, I'll call on you if we get time.
But I will add this also. We do need to be serious about the health of Oklahoma. And I don't pretend that it's the state's government's role to carry that function. But we have some major health issues that I think that we as a state, frankly, we have some state policies that promote that. And certainly I think as we talk about health care, we need to be also not just talking about the affordability of it, but we need to be thinking about health, because ultimately that's what's driving the major costs.
Bob.
Representative Shannon, you alluded to the whole idea of our government's dependence upon federal funding to various agencies and the problems that creates. I view that as reducing our state sovereignty to that extent, that dependence. What I'm wondering is this, gentlemen, to the extent the federal government provides funds directly to counties, cities, local municipalities through ACOGs, would you be willing to support legislation that constrains that level of dependence so that they themselves can maintain their independence and sovereignty of local governments and not become very dependent on the federal government?
I'll be honest, I hadn't thought through that. Certainly all options need to be on the table. The main focus for me, though, is, what happens all the time, we have state agencies that come to us. I know Senator Bingman's had it happen, I've had it happen, where a state agency comes to you and says, listen, we've got this federal program, it's being cut, we need the state to fill in the gap, or we've got this, there's this federal match, if you will, increase our state appropriation, we can match it 3-4 times with a state grant, with a federal grant. And so what's happened is, in fact, we did a study, I think OCPAC even looked at this, I see Jonathan Small there, over 50% of the entire state revenue it comes from federal sources. And I just think that that is a major concern, and we need to at least have a contingency plan. You know, one of the big factors is ODOT, Oklahoma Department of Transportation. I certainly think that's an appropriate place for the federal government to be spending money. But again, there's a big possibility they won't be spending as much in future years, and we need to be prepared for that. That's the real focus for me. But certainly I think we should spend some time looking at where other state agencies and also you know, counties and municipalities as well. But I also believe in local control. I'm a big proponent of local control too. And so I certainly think that there's a way we can encourage them to adopt the same model. I'd certainly be for that, I think.
Well then, Representative Shannon, just follow up on that. May I make an appointment with you and discuss that thought further? Because that whole approach, that model, I realize it's new. It's not a direct state agency responsibility. We're dealing with local municipalities. But you see the advantage of keeping them autonomous. Can I make an appointment and talk to you about that further?
I'd be honored to, yes sir.
I'll do it. Give me my card when we're done here. Thank you.
Yes sir.
Dr. Yangley, you have one for the senator, and he's got to go.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Charlie, I think the place where we can draw that line is Indian country. When Senator Tom Cole invited a relationship with Sharia law and the Turks, and had Plains Indians, not Chickasaw Indians, had Plains Indians come and dance before the officials from Turkey to open up doors for inroads of the enemies of America and use Indians to do it with, I think that's where you can draw the line.
That's right.
I mean, I'm an Indian, I'm saying that to you as an Indian, and I'm volunteering to be your conservative representative later.
Get along?
You know, I get a lot of attention about being the first African American speaker, and I always tell people I'm also part Chickasaw, and the real story is a Chickasaw getting elected in Comanche territory. That's the real story.
I'm trying to make up for that.
Can you stay a little bit longer?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So, thank you so much. Back here, someone else. Okay. Steve first.
Mr. Speaker, I guess you like that title?
TW is fine. I'll tell you like I tell all my friends, you treat me like any other leader of the free world, okay? I can't see
It's good that you mentioned your unique status. Are you prepared for the attention that's going to come to Oklahoma because of your status as somebody who's probably going to get what Joe Biden would call a bunch of stuff whenever your position as the first black speaker of the state legislature comes to national attention?
You know, you take whatever media you get and you try to make the most of it, you know, but that's not my real focus. I mean, I ran as a conservative. That's why I got elected, not because of what I look like, not despite of what I look like, but because of what I believe. And, you know, I think that's where I'm going to be focused. That's where I've been focused since I got to the state legislature, and I'll continue to do that. I mean, I'm certainly proud of my heritage, but, you know, it's not the deciding factor in how I vote. It's a part of who I am. So.
David?
I'm sorry that the man from the Senate missed his question, but
Not as sorry as I am.
one of my disappointments with the legislature in this state has to do with the Republican leadership. The state revenues and the state budget has increased every year that you guys have been in power. It increased last year, it increased the year before that, and I would hope to God that it doesn't increase this next year. Are you looking at reducing the state expenditures?
Yeah, I think there is, and honestly, I think there's going to be a big movement to at least limit the growth of government. But I will tell you, the best way, and I think we've been negligent about how to do that, the best way that I know to reduce the size of government is frankly to have a civil society. If you have a civilized society, you need less government. And, you know, I've been dealing with a lot of people about, you know, talking about, you know, a lot of the social problems that we have, whether you're talking about, you know, high incarceration rates or substance abuse issues. They're all big social problems, but I will tell you most of them are really, you know, they're really symptoms of a much larger problem, which is a breakdown of the family unit. And I can't pretend that it's government's, it's certainly not government's role to be at the forefront of that. That needs to happen from a personal responsibility level and frankly from a faith community level. But certainly we can look at opportunities of how government is certainly an impediment to strong families, because if you want strong civilizations, it starts with a strong family unit. Then you just need less government when you have that. So yes, I think so. And also on the revenue side, I think there will be an opportunity to make sure, because again, let's be clear about what being a conservative means. A conservative does not mean spending no money ever for anything. That's not what it means. You know that and I know that. Being a conservative means being a good steward for what you've been blessed with, and I think that's really what we've been called to do. So.
Okay, back in the back table here. Either one of you. Go ahead. Lori, go ahead.
I would like to offer to drop by your office or mail you a copy of Tom Wood's notification and also a DVD by a man named Jason Ring from Texas. And after you're done, I'd ask that you share them with Mr. Bingham.
Happy to. No, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
If you had it in audio form, that'd be even better.
It's on audio.
Great.
Yeah, and this is a key thing. Particularly, I mean, these guys are busy all the time anyway, but particularly when session's in. They're really busy. But they have to drive to Lawton. They have to drive all over the state, or Sapulpa. If you can give them something audio, they can listen to that. That's called killing two birds with one stone. David, thanks. Okay. All right. Go ahead. We'll just do a couple more here.
Thank you for being here. My name is Ron Montgomery. I have a question, and I don't have all of my data with me, but I'm going to shoot from the hip in regards to this. There is something called the Agenda 21, and Italy, stuff like this. Now, where I'm going with this, sir, is Alabama, and I believe it's either Senate bill or either House bill 477 or either 377, and I'm not sure which. But it's one of those numerical numbers. That it would be a good reference benchmark and or a standard to use in order talking about sovereignty and our way of life. The United Nations is behind this Agenda 21. Thus, since we have a Republican governor, Republican House, and a Republican Senate, now would be the time to preserve liberty and freedom and sovereignty in Oklahoma by doing something to truncate or abrogate or do away and stop Agenda 21 in Oklahoma with one of these bills and use that as your benchmark standard copy to use so that you wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel and or the mousetrap. And that would be beautiful if we could do that. That would really be a big shot in the arm to stop the New World Order.
I think what he's trying to say is Alabama did pass a law last year, and I don't know the content of it, but to either repeal or prevent the growth of Agenda 21. Do you know anything about it?
I do. In fact, I've got some constituents that have brought it to my attention. I don't know about Alabama's fix for the problem, but I certainly am aware of the growing presence of the U.S. I guess I read a couple of weeks ago they even had the audacity to have, posters that people,
Yes.
monitors, voting election monitors in the U.S. and the United States of America. I mean, what an atrocity. You think about, as I think about this room, and I think, there's certainly a lot of concern about the direction of the country, and even, I guess, some concern about the direction of the state. And for me, the thing that concerns me the most is I look around the room, I see a few people with gray hair in the room, and some with no hair. Or both. I think about when those folks were in their 20s or in their teens. This country was #1 in everything you can imagine. We were #1 in personal income. We were #1 in education. We were #1 in manufacturing. That's not the case anymore. And I think we have to do some serious soul searching about how we get back there, because this is still the last greatest hope. And I think Oklahoma is well positioned to be really a model, a picture on the box. I don't care when you're putting together a puzzle. You got a lot of puzzle pieces. The most important piece of that puzzle is really the picture on the box. You got to know what it looks like. And we know California doesn't work. We know Greece doesn't work. We know those places are not. You can't spend and borrow your way to prosperity. And so I think Oklahoma has the opportunity to be that model on the box, that picture on the box for the rest of the nation. But certainly it's going to take an effort to get there.
About 2 more questions. Bob, with you.
Okay.
And then come to you, Tim.
I hate it that the other guys have got away, because I'd like to ask this to the whole bunch. Number one, for 8 years, Oklahoma has been the shining star on the constitutional move. And we've been totally ignored by the people inside of the party. It's embarrassing, the opportunities that have been being blown out there at the Capitol by not making the whole nation know that we are out front. And this was extremely embarrassing last night.
Do we have a question on this? Let's hurry.
Yeah, can we do something to quit running off new members of the Republican Party because that they are constitutionalists?
I'll push back on that. I think you're right. We've got to grow our party. I mean, there's no question about it. We saw that last night. I'm going to say this with some trepidation. I see Michael McNutt taking note. But, you know, if we allow our party to become the party of old white men, that's going to be the death of our party. And we've got to be thinking about how we include everybody who wants to be included. Even if I talked about the difference in diverse opinions, we've got to have a strategy about how, nothing wrong with being an old white man. We certainly appreciate it. It may have been one of the only demographics we carried in the presidential election last night, it seems like. But I think if we had better have a very deliberate strategy about how we grow our party, and that does not mean that you have to compromise on principle. That's not what that means. That means that we have to be about communicating our message. Again, we're right on life, we're right on taxes, we're right on personal liberties, we're right on freedom. We just need to make sure we're communicating that in a way that doesn't alienate people.
Shannon,
I want to know why if it's possible for us to discuss and pass budget before the last 30 days of session, so we're not bombarded with a lot of high-cost issues that have to be incorporated into a new budget. In other words, can we set budgetary limits in March or April of session, rather than waiting that long in the fall?
Did you say 30 days or 3 days? No.
But the follow-up is, why isn't there some move to do away with the franchise tax, which requires employees in the tax commission and is an expense that doesn't generate a lot of revenue? That would be a way of signaling Oklahomans that we are serious about eliminating tax concerns. It might lead us to finally getting individual income tax done away with.
Okay.
Point well taken, and I'll own that as a legislator. We have not done a good job about budgeting early. I mean, I own that, and we are working very, very, very hard to improve that. Now, one of our challenges is, you know, the numbers from the Representative Reynolds, when the Board of Equalization, when do they release their numbers? I mean, their last final numbers. It's not until April. I mean, about mid-April sometimes. So that becomes part of it when we know exactly how much money the board says we have. But we can do better. I mean, I own that. And you're right. I think we need to make sure we have the most competitive tax rate in America. If we want to drop, you know, capital is a coward. It's not going to flow to a hostile environment. And we need to make sure that we have the most welcoming tax code in the union if we're serious about attracting jobs and attracting and growing our tax base.
This gentleman, last question right there. You sir, didn't you have your hand up there? Oh, no. Oh, okay. All right, last question right here.
Representative Shannon, how are
Sir,
you today?
doing well, thank you, sir.
Good team in today. You guys kind of brushed aside about the Sharia law issue earlier. 75% of the population of Oklahoma voted for Sharia law. Scott Pruitt promised me personally that he would take that up and readdress that. He did not take it up and readdress it. They tried to get put back in the House and it's still being shoved aside. Do you really understand the consequences of what Sharia law means when the 75% of the Oklahomans said we do not want this in this country?
Yeah, again, we passed it in the House, and I voted, as I recall, I voted for it. I'd be willing to vote for it again. I think it's a move in the right direction. Our challenge has been the court system. And this is, and I want to push back. You guys have pushed on us too. I want to make sure that we do a very good job of understanding the difference between friends and foes. You've got a lot of friends and a lot of allies at the state capitol, and you need to recognize it. You have a lot of people that agree with you on a lot of things. And we need to make sure that when we have disagreements, we don't treat them as if they're the enemy. I mean, I think that's part of the challenge. And so there are a lot of people who stand with you on that, who have supported that. And I think that'll be the case next session as well. Our big challenge has been the court system and continues to be.
Is there legislation to come back with that again, or do you know?
We haven't introduced any legislation yet, but I'm sure there will be, I have no doubt.
Okay, let me address that and really what happened last year. When the state question, when we had passed the state question to amend our Constitution, that went to the courts. Senator Anthony Sykes told me before the session started last year, it looked like that was going to go down in flames. I don't think that the Attorney General has decided to push on that any longer. State Representative Sally Kern came up with legislation last year to avoid the problems that came about that put it in the courts in the first place. Right. It passed last year, and the bill came over to the Senate this year and was defeated in a conference. I'm sure the senator that was here with us did not realize what happened, but another bill came about and it was covered. And it came about and they got a vote on it so they could say they voted to eliminate it. It was not a compatible bill with Representative Kern's bill. There was no time for it to be heard. It was just a bill to cover the rears, in my opinion, for their failure or for killing it in the Senate. I am confident that legislation will come about this year, again, that avoids the problems that refer to this as a religion. I'm confident it will come about. It is in our top priority list, and we're urging these two men to support it. And it will be something that we will work on very hard to get done. Glenn, we really need to shut it down unless you...
Our senator who was just here told me that the Senate had passed it, sent it back to the House. The House did not have time to deal with it before...
I know they didn't have time, and that's what I'm saying. It was covered. It was covered, in my opinion. So, okay, folks, thank you so much for coming today. Especially thank you. You know, it's just like PW said. There's a lot of diverse opinions within the caucus. There are here also, and that's the problem. How do you push that through with all this diversity?